We all think the Bible starts with "in the beginning," but what if I told you there's a fascinating theory that suggests we're missing the first chapter? A chapter 0 that talks about a cosmic war before creation, a story that might have been deliberately hidden. And if it's true, well, it changes everything. Not just the beginning of the story, but our entire reason for being here.
Yeah, think about that. We're all taught Genesis 1 is page 1, the absolute start of everything. But this theory completely flips the script. It suggests that the story we all know is actually Act 2, a kind of divine cleanup operation after a cosmic catastrophe shattered the original, perfect creation.
So, this is what they call the Chapter 0 theory. The whole idea is that there's this lost, cosmic prologue to Genesis, a hidden story about spiritual warfare that all went down before the physical universe even existed. And the key idea? That for some very profound reasons, the ancient scribes who compiled the text chose to leave it out.
I mean, this has to be one of the most famous lines ever written, right? It feels so final, so absolute. It's like the starting gun for reality itself. But some scholars and mystics look at this very same verse and they see something totally different. They don't see a beginning, they see a new beginning.
And that brings us to the huge question at the heart of all this. Is Genesis 1 really describing creation out of absolutely nothing? Or is it a divine act of restoration, a recreation, built on the ruins of a reality that came before?
Okay, so you're probably wondering, where's the proof for an idea this big? Well, proponents of the theory say that clues aren't in some brand new, undiscovered scroll. They say they've been hiding in plain sight this whole time, embedded right there in the original Hebrew text of Genesis. And it all really hinges on two crucial Hebrew words. They're found in the second verse of Genesis describing what the earth was like. Those words are tohu vavohu. Now, you've probably heard this translated as formless and void, or without form and empty.
But here's the twist. The Chapter 0 theory suggests a totally different interpretation. Instead of a neutral, empty slate, tohu vavohu could actually describe a world that became a wasteland, a state of absolute chaos and devastation that was left over from some kind of cataclysm. It wasn't empty, it was wrecked.
So let's just break that down for a second. The traditional view, creation from nothing. Genesis 1 is the absolute start. But the Chapter 0 theory, it's a restoration of a ruined world. Genesis 1 isn't the start, it's a restart. That is a massive difference.
And this isn't just a wild guess. Supporters of this idea say it finds backup elsewhere in the scriptures. They point to verses like this one from Isaiah, which says God did not create the earth to be tohu, to be chaotic. So if it wasn't created that way, how did it get that way? The theory says the only explanation is that some catastrophe happened between the perfect original creation and that scene of desolation we find in Genesis 1 verse 2.
So what on earth could have caused a catastrophe of that magnitude? This is where the theory gets really epic. It tells a story of a pre-material reality, a spiritual creation that existed before time and space as we know it, and a cosmic war that tore it all apart. Mystical traditions, like the Kabbalah, paint this incredible picture of a pre-material world. It was purely spiritual, inhabited by beings of pure light, and even a kind of primordial, perfect form of humanity called Adam Kadmon. But this perfect state was shattered by a rebellion, a war in the heavens that completely wrecked the original cosmic order.
And you can actually find echoes of this pre-Adamic fall right inside the Bible. This passage in Ezekiel, it describes this perfect being, an anointed cherub in the garden of God, who gets cast down because of wickedness. Now listen closely. This isn't the story of Adam and Eve. This seems to be pointing to a much, much earlier fall from grace.
Kabbalistic teaching has this really powerful metaphor for what happened. It's called the breaking of the vessels. The story goes that God's infinite light was poured into these spiritual vessels, but they just couldn't handle its intensity, and they shattered. This cosmic explosion scattered holy sparks of light all across creation, trapping them inside shards of darkness. And the result? Well, it's the fragmented reality we live in now, a world where light and shadow, good and evil, are all mixed up in everything.
Which, of course, leads to a massive question. If this story is the true prequel to our entire existence, why isn't it Chapter 1 of Genesis? I mean, why would such profound, important knowledge be hidden, maybe even censored from the text?
Well, the theory goes that the reasoning wasn't malicious. It was protective.
First, these truths were considered way too spiritually powerful for just anyone. If they were misunderstood, they could lead to some really dangerous ideas. And finally, hiding them actually lines up with a core scriptural idea called progressive revelation, the concept that deeper truths are revealed slowly, over time, as humanity gets ready to actually receive them.
The Apostle Paul talks about this exact idea. He explains that he taught the basic concepts, spiritual milk, because people just weren't ready for the solid food of deeper mysteries. The ancient keepers of the scripture might have seen this chapter 0 story as some seriously solid food, something you'd only share with the most spiritually mature.
Okay, so what? What does this all mean for you and me right now? Well, if this theory is true, it completely reframes our purpose. We aren't just living our lives on Earth, we are actually here on a mission.
And that mission has a name. It's beautifully captured in the concept of tikkun olam, which literally means repairing the world. Our sacred task from this point of view is to find all those scattered divine sparks, those fragments of light from the breaking of the vessels, and through our actions, elevate them, gather them up, and restore the original cosmic harmony.
See how this changes things? We're not just passive residents on this planet anymore. We become active partners with the divine. Our lives are no longer just about us. They're part of a cosmic mission. Every single moral choice, every act of kindness becomes an act of cosmic repair, helping to mend the fabric of a broken reality. And that is why our free will is so incredibly, profoundly important.
This perspective gives a whole new depth to the concept of redemption, too. It's suddenly not just about saving individual human souls. As Paul writes here in Colossians, it's about God reconciling all things back to himself, whether on earth or in heaven. It's a complete cosmic restoration project, healing the original wound that happened long before humanity ever showed up.
This just reframes everything. If our world is a giant restoration project, then every single action we take either helps repair that original breach or it deepens the fragmentation. So the question then isn't some abstract theoretical thing. It's personal, and it's for right now, this very moment. Are you living out your cosmic mission?